So troubleshooting and what could go wrong. So really, this is a skill set that you guys want to learn because there's only a few places that your marketing can break down. So the better marketers that I've hung out with, the masterminds that I've been in, one of the biggest things that I've noticed is that the better marketers have better frameworks in their heads, meaning they got better mental models on how to figure out when stuff works, when stuff doesn't work. One of the best models, I think, is Dan Kennedy's Results Marketing Triangle. His book is really good on this. It's like No BS Marketing, but he covers this in magnetic marketing as well. But essentially, he calls it a three-legged stool of marketing, which you have your message, you got your market, and you got your media. And all three of them have to be correct. So you have to have the right message to the right market via the right media. If you have one of these things wrong, it's not going to work. Okay. So for our case, the media is cold email. So now the only two things that we have to get right is what is the message to market match, right? Are you sending the right message to the right person, right? You wouldn't send, I got ice for sale for an Eskimo. However, you would say, you have ice for sale if people are in the desert, right? And they want a cold drink. Okay. So that message to market match, ultra important. So the way that I think of it when it comes to cold email marketing is you have your copy / your unique value proposition, which is your message. Then you have the data you get, which is the market of where your stuff's getting delivered. And then your media, which is the cold email, is actually the deliverability. How can you get it delivered? So if that's kind of the three stools, the way I think of it. So if your email campaigns aren't working, you got to look at the copy / unique value proposition. Is it, and we'll cover that in more detail. Is the data that I got good? Is it the right data? Is it the right market? Am I delivering the right copy to the right market? And then also we got to look at the delivery, because sometimes you got the message right, you got the market right, but you don't have the actual deliverability right. And that comes down to the tech stuff. And then if you're lazy like me, you just do the gray hat method, right? Actually, it's both, but the deliverability is always going to be a pain, but that's always changing. But I want to give you guys the tools on how to actually go ahead and do that. So the market and bad data. So if you guys are scraping, the wrong list, here's a few of the mistakes. Number one, you got the wrong data. So you're getting wrong information. This is often the case if you're running the basic tools like, local lead lists. Those tools are great. D7, those are great, but you got to double check them. You got to make sure that, hey, are these the right people? In some of my campaigns that didn't work, we were doing loan officers, and I realized we were sending cold emails to veterinarians and all sorts of stuff. And that was when I wasn't double checking. So you got to double check the data that you get, make sure it's the right data, it's the right message that you're sending it to. Because if I'm saying, hey, would you like to get 15 more appointments for FHA home loans, pre-qualifications, and it's going to someone that owns a vet clinic, not really going to work, right? So that's mistake number one, wrong data. Number two is not spending enough on data. So we always take the path of least resistance. That's what I've noticed. All these other cold email courses that people fail with is because it's, a basic tool, $99 that everyone else uses, right? What I've done differently, and the reason why I've had success, is I've always gone a step further, whether it's using D7 in a unique way or using local leads list in a unique way, or using different tools, right? So Mazzy said, go pin leads. Ever use that? I haven't, but one of the things that I'm always doing is I'm looking for different tools to use, right? So I've used, the Zoom info. I've used all the tools that I shared with you. I've used almost every single one of them inside the training, but not spending enough. If you're simply willing to go on Upwork and hire and think a little outside the box, maybe it's costs another $200, but that data that you get is so much better that it's going to cause success in your campaign. I think it's worth it. Another mistake is not sending data fast enough. Listen, guys, the cold email data that you get, I read some stat on it, but essentially it goes bad pretty quick because people are changing their email addresses and all that. So once you scrape a list, whether you hire a guy to do it through Python, whether you run it through the programs, whether you do Hunter.io, Rocket Reach, any of these things, you don't want to sit on that data. You want to get that data, clean it, and send it out as quick as possible, because it's just like that's as fresh as that data is going to be. Another is not testing enough data sources, right? It's only scraping what, like when I'm in a niche, I want to use every method, every data scraping tool that there is available, right? When we were going after, I'm not going to give away this niche, but we were going after this one niche very, very hard. We use Hunter, we use Rocket Reach, we use D7, we use everything. I was hiring people trying to find unique data because, again, that harder data to get is going to be the data that's been hit by everyone else. And I've never seen this taught in any cold email course. I've probably bought every single one of them. And this is going to give you guys a huge advantage because most other marketers, when they're doing cold email, are running the same exact tools. So, and again, that comes down to data that everyone else has. We want to be getting unique data. And then finally, it's red ocean traps, right? Blue ocean, red ocean. Can't recommend that book enough. If not, watch some YouTube tutorials on it, but you really want to realize that the more you go into a red ocean of people that have been hit over the face with cold email, the less response you're going to get. The only way you could correct that is to understand the 5 major marketing objections. And really the biggest ones is to be different and proof. And we'll cover that in the future. But again, Blue Ocean Strategy, absolutely huge. If you guys have not picked up that book alone, if you like, strategy is one thing, tactics is one thing, right? I'm teaching you the tactics, but really what gives you the game-changing stuff is understanding the strategy. And the strategy is Blue Ocean Strategy, right? We want to go into the blue ocean waters. And that's why also, that's like swipe files, templates, they're great. But the big mistake that I see when people use them is they just will use them into a red ocean, right? Or it's something that worked and you're copying what someone else worked. And like I said, first you have like Warren Buffett says, first you have the innovators, then you have the imitators, and then you have the idiots, right? So many, for the first 5 years that I was in this, I was always the idiot. I was always the one grabbing the course, trying to copy the guy in the program, whatever niche he picked, that's what I picked, and that's what I did. And I had very limited success because I was always the idiot, right? I was not the innovator of trying to find my unique niches, like I showed you in the case studies, or trying to find my different niches, right? You don't want to be the idiot that's copying what everyone else in the program's copying or what everyone else in the marketplace is doing, right? Basic supply and demand. So Blue Ocean Strategy, highly recommend picking up that book. The other book is this, which is the 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. That's a really, really good book. And it basically says the same thing. The first law is kind of creating a new category, which basically means, creating a new blue ocean so that you're the leader. Every marketing campaign that I create, I always wanted to be the number one, the unique, right? With NeoGraft, it's like I was the only company that guaranteed 100 inquiries per month. I'm in a category of my own. It was multi-channel marketing. Again, if you guys copy that now, you're going to be probably the imitators, but most likely you'll be the idiots because I've already slammed that niche, okay? So it's coming up with your own unique hooks, and depending on what you guys sell, there's always a way to find a way to be unique or hit a new blue ocean. So, right, 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing, highly recommend reading that book. If I could recommend 2, they're not really cold email specific, but this stuff will help you more with your cold email than a lot of the straight tactical stuff. So that's triangle number 1, which is the market and wrong data, right? So these are kind of checks and balances to make sure that you got that kind of leg of the stool right. The next leg of the stool is wrong copy, right? So if you got the market right, you've done all that, you've scraped it, you got unique data, you got all the stuff, all the principles that I'm teaching you, you can still mess it up, right? If your copy is too long-winded, I like to start with shorter cold emails in the beginning and then go longer emails towards the end of my 8-part sequence. But if you start off with really long emails in the beginning, the copy can be messed up. If the copy is trying to be too funny, it can be messed up. If the copy is too rigid and boring, it can be messed up. If the market to message mismatch, if you don't understand, right? I covered this in the customer avatar journey if you guys go into the JK group, but you really have to step into the head, right, of your ideal prospect, that customer avatar, and figure out what is going on with them. Again, I gave you the copywriting resources in the program, but you really want to start to understand, who am I sending out this message to, right? And the last thing could be wrong timing, okay? So again, I hardly see anyone talk about this. You only start to learn about this stuff when you get to the more and more advanced stuff, but I think it's quite fundamental. This book right here, really good book. It's always sitting on my bookshelf over there. It is Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. It's $100, but basically it's one of the only books that talks about timing, which is super, super key, because what worked 2 years ago is not going to work today. Just like you wouldn't start Blockbuster Video today because the marketplace changes, you have to realize that sometimes your messaging and your stuff would have worked, right? I had taught my loan officer case study to another group, and then a lot of people, like I think like 10 or 11 people, tried to copy me verbatim, right? And it didn't work. And they were like, Mike, it doesn't work. And of course it doesn't work, because that had already been hammered with that messaging, and the timing was off. It's not that the copy was wrong. The copy worked when it did. However, markets evolve, right? When you were the first guy ever to sell SEO, that was unique enough, right? And that's what happens with red ocean, blue ocean. It's kind of a natural evolution of the markets, right? Every market does the same thing, and you should learn about timing. You got to figure out where your market is, what they've heard before, because again, you're never marketing in a vacuum. So what have they heard before? And then what you want to do is you want to time the market based off of that. And again, the best book on that is this guy right here. The other one, which is on my shelf somewhere, is Great Leads by Michael Masterson. So that's what I'll say about that. You guys having any questions so far? How you guys liking this? Take a pause here. I'm going to dig up the Great Leads book. Where is that? It is. I don't know where it is. Cool. Lola's loving it. Thank you, Lola. Scott Williams is great. This is another good book right here. Really key positioning, really good book. I want to find the book is called Great Leads. I got so many books here. I think it's down here. 1 second. There it is. No, that is. Anyway, I just moved into a new office here, so I'm kind of all over the place. Cool. Mazzy said, great. Could you bring back the cold email results triangle for a second? Yes, I can. I know we're a bit delayed. So cool. Thanks, guys. I'm loving the feedback here. How do you figure out if a niche has already been hit hard with marketing already? You really gotta it's about testing, right? You always got to test and then adjust, right? So I've hit niches that I've been like, you know what, this niche has been hammered. You send out an email and it works great. Then other times you go into another niche and you're like, this is pretty wide open and there's no response at all. And you just adjust. And I'll cover the 5 marketing objections. These are really key. So this is kind of what I go through. Cool. Glad you guys are liking this. Thank you. So these are the 5 marketing objections, right? And there's only 5 objections. So what I like to do is I like to think not about how do you, so what Charlie Munger said. Charlie Munger basically said that you want to reverse engineer stuff, right? So instead of trying to figure out like how to live a happy life, you figure out what's going to cause you to live a miserable life, right? Invert it. It's the guy that invented algebra. That's how he did it, like invert, right? So how to live a miserable life, take drugs, never be reliable, all that stuff. Really good stuff by Charlie Munger. So I kind of did that with this. Like, what are the 5 reasons why someone would not respond to your marketing, right? Would not respond to your cold email. And there's only 5. One is they don't have the time, right? They see your message and they're like, you know what? I don't even want to look at this. Number 2 is they see your message and they're not interested. Number 3 is there is no perceived difference. Number 4 is they don't believe you. And number 5 is they don't make a decision, right? So you'll see how this works. So how do you handle the 5 major marketing objections? And it goes back to the persuasion equation, which I taught inside the program, and that's how you handle it. So handling the first objection, right? No time. What you simply do is you make it seem valuable, right? And the way that I like to do this when it comes to cold email is by having very, very simple subject lines, which is like, a new client, new referral for. Yeah, it might be a little tricky, but guess what? If they see in their inbox, here's a referral for me, they're going to make the time for that, right? Does that make sense? So you need to make it seem valuable. It's the whole Cracker Jack secret, right? Which is you want to make your marketing valuable at the end of the day, because we all think that when we write a cold email, we do something that we're playing catch, right? We just made this message, we're going to deliver it. When in fact, our prospects are playing dodgeball. The amount of Facebook ads we see, direct mail we see, all this stuff, right? The way around that is you need to make it valuable. You need to get their attention. So that's how to handle that first objection of no time, right? Number 2 is the no interest, okay? They might see it, but they're not interested. So the way you fix this is you make sure that you address the gap. You address the urgent problem, right? People pay attention to their problems, right? If we have a problem and we see a solution, we're immediately going to be interested, right? And that comes down to the old problem, agitate, solution, right? So that's how you handle that. You make sure in your message, you're addressing a problem or a gap, right? Make it seem valuable. Make sure that, hey, here's the result you're going to get, which is going to solve this problem, right? Make sense? So that's how you handle that. Always make sure, right? And I see this a lot of times, right? People will have an email, I'll do your SEO for you. Guess what? It's too far away from the pillow talk. It has to be about their urgent problem, right? How are you going to fix their problem? How is it? And you have to be tie it down to they're going to make more money. It's going to save them time. They're going to get more exposure, right? The more specific, concrete, and tangible you make it, which you'll notice people look at mine and they're like, well, how do I use it to sell SEO? How do I use it to sell these other things? And the way that you do it is I sell SEO, but I always lead with something more concrete and tangible, right? I think it's very hard to go, hey, I'm going to rank this up for you and it's just going to sit there. I like to lead with other things. And then I always back end the SEO once I have their attention, once I have their trust. So I sell AdWords to start off, Facebook ads, that kind of stuff. You can still sell SEO. You just have to really tie it in to how it serves their urgent problem and make it sound unique, right? Now, that is number 2, the urgent problem. Number 3 is no perceived difference, right? They get your message and they say, you know what, I've seen this before. I've got a million messages like this, right? And they don't respond. It's a marketing objection, right? They're not going to go to the next step. So how do we fix that? Very simple. We have a unique promise, right? Your promise has to be unique. You have to find a way to have that perceived difference in their head, because if they think that it's the same as everything they've ever seen before, they're not going to respond to your marketing material. It's just going to be the same old. I mean, I get so many emails that I've seen so many different times. Hey, there's no difference in it. And the difference comes down to, it could be the blue ocean strategy. It could be, like you guys have to, everyone has questions with niche and being different. Really, this is the value, which is reading books like Positioning, reading books like Breakthrough Advertising, and then understanding what's going on in the market and finding gaps, finding ways like, once you understand the market, once you understand their feedback too, because I got some questions here, which is like struggling with niche selection. I've learned a lot of my perceived difference by going out and not being different, right? And people telling me, why are you different? Like Jarrett sent an email and the thing I said, the guy actually said, tell me why you're different than everyone else, right? That should be addressed in the email, right? Whether it's a guarantee, whether it's, you have a different unique mechanism like what Eugene Schwartz talks about. So that is number 3, perceived difference. Number 4 is they see your messaging, right? And they don't believe it. So that comes, the way you handle that objection is with proof elements, right? And we're going to cover that in detail right now in a second. And finally, it's no decision. It's sending out a cold email. And the way to solve this objection is to have a very user-friendly call to action. Sometimes you're asking for too much. That's why you never ask for the sale in the cold email. You always ask for that quick 5-minute appointment or booking your calendar, right? So that's how you handle the 5 major marketing objections. You guys have any questions on that? And let me know if you guys are liking this. Take a sip of my Topo Chico. So what essentially this does is this gives you a way to look at and try to backwards engineer why your messaging failed, right? Was it valuable enough? Did it address an urgent problem, or was it a superficial problem? Is it a unique promise that I'm making? Is there proof elements involved? And did I have a user-friendly call to action, right? That way you'll be able to start to look at your messaging and start to do what I do, which is when I consult people and help people, I'm really running these checklists through my head and looking at their emails, looking at their marketing, okay?